Welcome to the PMD Pro 1 preparation program. This module looks at the project lifecycle. Now, many organizations in the development sector have developed models that outline their interpretation of the lifecycle of their projects. Take, for example, the World Bank. The World Bank uses a circular model that starts at the top of the page with the conception of the project and continues through a circular process of developing the preparation of the projects, the analysis and appraisal, the implementation, the operations and evaluation, and then returning in a circular sequence to the top of the circle. The Food and Agriculture Organization uses a different model to interpret their project life cycle, which has a circular feedback loop in the center, which involves project design and formulation, implementation, project monitoring and evaluation, and then ultimately breaks out to your post-project activities. Other sectors also have a culture of projects. Take, for example, the software sector. This is a particularly interesting design for a project lifecycle in the software sector, which is a spiral, and it recognizes the iterative, repetitive, and learning nature of projects by designing the project lifecycle in a spiral shape that goes from beginning through prototypes and finally to the development and testing of your outputs. Although all of these project life cycles differ in shape and in the terms they use, their intent is the same, and that is to communicate with the organization and the people they work with the steps or phases that they see as critical in the project life cycle and the relationships between them. The PMD Pro 1, we think it's important to have a generic life cycle that help construct the learning that takes place in the PMD Pro curriculum. In this module, we'll outline the steps in the life cycle, going through the phases that start with the project identification and design phase. The project identification and design phase is where an organization begins to explore the possibility of a project, identifying ideas, conducting assessments, completing analysis, and designing the logic of the project. Once that high-level identification and design is completed, the project can go through an initiation process, which could be multiple steps. It could be a concept paper leading into a discussion piece, a project proposal, and ultimately a project charter. The steps in the process are all intended, even if they are different from one organization to another, the initiation steps are intended to assure that organizations aren't investing in the development of a project or investing in activities of a project that is not officially supported and approved, either internally or by key external donors, and it provides a green light for investments on a project. After the project initiation is completed, you have your project planning. While there's been a lot of work completed in the identification and design, the project planning is less about identifying outputs and less about selling your proposal to donors and more about giving the plan that helps your project team execute the project in its comprehensive fullness and in a balanced approach. There's a very extensive amount of information that goes in the project plan that might not have been included in a project log frame, which we'll discuss later, or a project proposal. And the plan needs to be comprehensive and balanced. Based on the plan, the next phase in the project life cycle is project implementation and working with the stakeholders and motivating them, leading them, facilitating them to implement the plan as it was developed in the project planning process. Notice that the iterative feedback loop is taking place between planning and implementation, and there is a certain plan, act, learn, do cycle that takes place where each time you implement, you are informing your next planning process. After you've completed your implementation, you go into your closing processes, which could be a continuation of a next phase of the project or another activity. We call that phase the end of project transition. And in the background, through this entire project life cycle, is monitoring, evaluation, and control, which takes place from beginning to the end of the project and informs the work of each of the other phases.